You already picked out the hotel?" I asked, staring at her unlocked phone on the bathroom counter like it was hissing. She froze. Just for a second. Just long enough for the steam from the shower to feel like it was rising off me instead. She didn't scream. She didn't snatch it. She just exhaled, slow, rehearsed, and said, "Clive, it's not what it looks like." Except it was exactly what it looked like. She had an open message thread with someone named Austin. Work, ironic label for a guy who definitely wasn't emailing her about spreadsheets. The last message? "Hi, it's confirmed. You pick the wine. I'll handle the rest." Face blowing a kiss. I stood there in my wrinkled Target boxers, holding a toothbrush like a weapon I didn't know how to use. The room smelled like lavender conditioner and betrayal. And she just stood there, wrapped in my towel. "I was going to tell you," she said. "When?" "Before it happened. So after you packed your bag, but before the second glass of wine." She didn't answer. She looked tired. Tired of me. Tired of this house. Tired of pretending to love a guy who clips coupons and still gets excited over rotisserie chicken sales. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break something, but I'm not built like that. I'm built for quiet, internal devastation, the kind that ruins your week and makes you apologize to the dog for being too quiet. Instead, I said the most pathetic thing I've probably ever said. "What if I gave you permission?" She blinked. "What? If I gave you a free pass? One night. Just one. Would that be enough?" She looked at me like she couldn't believe what I was saying. Honestly, I couldn't believe it either. But I was grasping, flailing, desperate. "I don't want you to hate me for keeping you locked in," I mumbled. "If you need to know what that's like, go ahead." She studied me, like she was waiting for a trap door to open under her feet. And then, she smiled. That smile. God, that smile. That little satisfied smirk that said I got what I wanted without her ever having to beg for it. But before she could reach for her phone and text her hotel boy back, I held up one finger. "But you don't get it for free," I said. "You said I could. I said you have to choose. 2 options. That's the deal." She paused. "What options?" I leaned against the doorway, heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear myself think. "You either take your night and never come back, or you bring him here first, and I get 5 minutes alone with him. Just 5. Her face dropped. And in that moment, I swear the room got colder. She didn't laugh this time. That smug little curl at the corner of her mouth vanished, like it had never existed. For the first time since I found the texts, she looked unsure. Not guilty, not sorry, just unsure. Like someone trying to do math in a dream. "What do you mean, bring him here?" she finally asked, her voice a little quieter now. "You're joking, right?" I didn't answer her question. I just said, "Those are the 2 options, Charisse. You walk out that door and make it a one-way trip, or you bring him here first. And I get 5 minutes." 5 minutes for what? To talk. That's insane. No. Insane is planning a secret night in a hotel while the person who'd die for you is refilling the dog's water bowl in the next room. She folded her arms, and I could see the gears turning behind her eyes. She was calculating, not feeling. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a moment of weakness for her. It was a choice. A planned one. A rehearsed one. And now she was stuck, because I hadn't reacted the way she expected. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I didn't scream and make her feel like a tragic victim in her own mind. No, I'd done the worst possible thing to a person who wanted to be chased. I made her choose. "You're bluffing," she said after a long silence, wrapping the towel tighter around herself like I was the threat. "You wouldn't really do that. Try me." I watched her turn away. She walked down the hall toward the bedroom, her wet hair dripping on the hardwood like little fingerprints. I sat there at the table, staring at the untouched toast and half-drunk coffee she left behind, and waited. It took 22 minutes. That's how long it took before she returned, dressed in jeans and a gray hoodie, the one she always wore on casual errands, which I now knew might have meant something entirely different. Her eyes were red, but there were no tears. She held her phone in both hands like it was about to explode. "I texted him," she said. "He's coming." I blinked. "Here." "Yes. He thinks I'm breaking it off. He doesn't know about your little game." "It's not a game." She rolled her eyes. "You want 5 minutes to what? Make a scene? Flex your weird, quiet husband energy?" I didn't answer. I just went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the cup. She paced for the next 30 minutes. Didn't sit. Didn't speak. just kept checking her phone and glancing at the door like it might betray her before he got the chance. Then, at 11:42 a.m., a knock. 3 short taps. She opened it without hesitation. And there he stood, tall, buttoned shirt, smug face, fake concern painted across his expression like a bad actor in a high school play. Austin, the man from the messages. The man who knew she was married and still sent hotel confirmations with kissy faces. He stepped in, eyes flicking from her to me, confused but not alarmed. That smugness was something I hadn't expected in person. He was confident, like he thought this was going to end with her melting into his arms while I quietly shuffled away with my dignity packed in a shoebox. "Clive, right?" he asked, extending his hand. I didn't shake it. Instead, I set the timer on my phone. 5 minutes. "Sit," I said. "Both of you." Austin glanced at her, confused. She avoided eye contact. I think that was the first time the realization truly hit her. This wasn't going the way she imagined. I looked him dead in the eyes and began. The moment they sat down across from me, both on edge, both silent, I knew I finally had control. Not power, not dominance, just clarity. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like the pathetic, invisible man picking up after a marriage that had quietly started dying the second she stopped laughing at my jokes. Austin sat like he was doing me a favor, legs crossed, one arm slung over the back of the chair like he belonged there. His eyes flicked to his watch like this was just a short detour before he got what he came for. Charisse, on the other hand, looked pale, not scared, just nervously curious, like she still couldn't decide whether she was embarrassed for me or herself. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I just leaned forward, put my elbows on the table, and started talking. "You're not special, Austin," I said. "I know she made you feel like you were. I know you probably think she's trapped in a loveless marriage with a boring guy who doesn't understand her. And I know she fed you a carefully curated version of our relationship. One where you're the escape, the spark, the hero. But here's the truth. You're not the first guy she's cheated on me with. You're just the first one I invited to sit down." That hit him harder than I expected. He glanced at her, frowning now. She blinked, stunned. The air shifted. "She told me it was the first time," Austin said. "Of course she did," I replied calmly. "They all think they're the first. You think she told the last guy about you? Or the one before him about him? You're just the current face she's projecting her boredom onto." Charisse's jaw tightened. "Clive, stop." "No," I said, looking directly at her now. "You don't get to stop me. You wanted honesty? You're going to sit here and choke on it." I turned back to Austin. "You know what she said about you 2 nights ago? After you left that voice message about taking her to Napa? She laughed. Said you were too eager. Said you'd get attached if she kissed you too slowly. That's what you are to her. A thing. A mood. A risky little thrill she can shut off when it starts talking too much." Austin shifted uncomfortably now, glancing toward the door like he suddenly remembered how small our hallway was. "She told me you were distant," he mumbled. I smiled. "Oh, I am. I've been distant since the last guy she cried over. Since I realized I married someone who uses other men as mirrors because she can't stand her own reflection." Charisse finally snapped. "You're humiliating me." "No," I said, still calm. "You did that yourself the moment you started planning hotel reservations while I was grocery shopping for your favorite almond milk. This isn't humiliation. This is exposure." The timer on my phone buzzed. 5 minutes. That was all I said I needed. I stood up, slid my chair in, and turned toward the hallway. Austin stayed frozen. Charisse stood, but I raised a hand without looking back. "I'm going out for an hour. When I come back, if he's still here, I'm calling your mother first. Then your sister. Then our lawyer." She gasped. "Clive, what the hell are you doing?" "Giving you your night," I said, grabbing my coat. "But you'll wish I hadn't." Then I walked out the door. No slamming. No last words. Just a door quietly closing behind 2 people who had no idea what was about to hit them. I didn't go far. Just to the end of the block. There's this old bench under a flickering street lamp that leans slightly to the left, like it's tired of standing straight for a world that never notices. I sat there, coat barely zipped, hands trembling in my lap. I stared at the sidewalk like it could answer questions I wasn't ready to ask. Part of me hoped he'd still be there when I got back. Not because I wanted to catch them. No, I'd already caught them in every way that mattered. But because I wanted him to see what she looked like when the mask slipped. I wanted him to witness the quiet storm she became when consequences walked through the front door. I didn't want him to believe she was the victim anymore. I waited 57 minutes. Long enough for my fingers to go numb. Long enough to imagine every possible scenario. Clothes tossed on the floor, doors locked, him hiding in the closet like some cliché soap opera. But mostly, I thought about what I'd say if she begged. If she cried. If she finally looked at me like I was more than background noise in her little drama. When I got home, the hallway was too quiet. I pushed the door open slowly. I hadn't locked it on purpose. I wanted them to feel exposed. I wanted them to wonder if I was already watching from the shadows, writing my goodbye letter or calling a lawyer or sitting in the car with a GoPro and a glass of bourbon. But the house was still, dead still. Her shoes were still by the door. His were gone. I walked past the kitchen, past the half-drunk coffee she hadn't finished, into the living room. She was there, alone, curled up on the couch with her knees tucked to her chest, like a teenager who just realized they weren't invincible. She didn't hear me at first. Or maybe she pretended not to. Her phone was next to her on the floor. Screen up. No texts. She looked up finally, eyes puffy, nose red. I almost believed she'd been crying. Until I remembered she used to fake tears to get out of parking tickets. I stood there, coat still on, the cold following me inside. You scared him, she said softly. I blinked. He ran. He said it was too intense. Said I was too messy. I almost laughed. Almost. But it wasn't funny. Not really. It was just sad. Pathetic. Predictable. So that's it. I asked. You picked your night. He flinched. Now you come back to me? She didn't answer. I gave you the chance, I continued. I gave you your night. I even opened the door for it. And now you want to slip back into normal like nothing happened? Her voice cracked. I made a mistake. No, I said. A mistake is forgetting our anniversary. What you did was calculated. You wanted to test the water. You wanted a backup. You wanted to feel wanted. You just didn't expect the fantasy to get awkward when it had to stand under a real light. She stood up suddenly, crossing the room with that desperate look in her eyes, the one I used to fall for. The one she used when rent was late and her job sucked, and I was the only one who stayed up with her until 2 a.m., talking about nothing just to make her feel safe. Clive, she said, reaching for me. Please. I didn't sleep with him. I swear. I stepped back. I never asked if you did. She blinked, confused. Because it's not about the night, I said quietly. It's about the fact that you were willing, that you made space for it in your life, that you planned it like it was a haircut. Her lip trembled. I almost reached out. Almost. But instead, I walked past her. Into the bedroom. I shut the door gently, and I locked it from the inside. She waited about an hour before she started talking through the door. At first it was soft, just my name, like saying it enough times might open something. Not the lock. Me. She wanted the version of me who still believed her, still fought to keep her close even when she was pushing away. But that version died the moment I saw her texting him about wine pairings. I didn't respond. Not because I was trying to be cruel. I just didn't know who I was supposed to be anymore. Forgiving husband? Strategic avenger? Quiet doormat? I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the same drawer she once shoved a wrapped anniversary gift into, and I realized I didn't even remember what it was. A book? A watch? Socks? That's how far we'd fallen. The details had faded before the betrayal even started. Clive, she said again, louder now. Please don't shut me out. I heard her slide down to the floor, her back to the door. Her voice cracked when she spoke next. I messed everything up. I know that. I was selfish and stupid. But I didn't go through with it. Doesn't that matter? It was incredible, honestly, how quickly the narrative shifted. She wasn't apologizing for wanting to cheat. She was asking for credit for not executing it. Like restraint bought redemption. I stood up, still silent, and opened the closet. I stared at my row of shirts. The same button-downs she once joked made me look like an accountant from Ohio. I started packing without thinking. Just 2 shirts, a pair of jeans, socks, toothbrush. Not because I was leaving permanently, but because I needed her to feel it. The realness of it. The echo of hangers left behind. When I unlatched the door and stepped out, she scrambled to her feet. Her eyes were glassy and panicked like a child caught sneaking candy. Where are you going? She whispered. Somewhere with silence, I said, brushing past her. Because I'm tired of hearing you spin guilt into pity. I'm not asking for pity, she said, following me down the hall. No, I said. You're asking for a reset. A clean page after writing in permanent ink. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam the door. I just walked out again, this time with a bag in my hand instead of rage in my chest. The Uber driver didn't ask questions, just nodded and drove. I didn't even give him a destination at first. I just said, anywhere but here. He took me to a hotel 2 exits over. Not fancy, not shady, just anonymous. The kind of place people disappear into when they don't want to be found. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. I just stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me like it was trying to hypnotize me into forgetting her. I played back everything. Every minute of the confrontation, every word she said. And then, I opened my phone and did something I never thought I would. I messaged the other man. Not to fight. Not to threaten. Just 4 words. She does this often. It didn't take long before he replied. What he sent changed everything. The message he sent wasn't long. Just 3 words. I figured that. I stared at it, rereading it at least a dozen times, trying to decide if it was smugness or sympathy. Either way, the damage was done. He knew who she was now, or at least who she became. And somewhere in the pit of my gut, that made me feel sick, not because I still wanted her, but because I once did. Badly. What came next hit harder than I expected. Another message. She said she wasn't married, only dating you, that you were emotionally intense. She said you broke down when the dog got sick. It was a strange kind of pain, knowing your most vulnerable moments were used to build someone else's case for cheating on you. She took my grief over a sick beagle and repackaged it as instability. She turned my softness into ammunition, my loyalty into a red flag. And here I was, sitting in a $68 a night hotel room with toothpaste in a plastic bag and a paper-thin comforter over my legs, wondering how long she'd been telling that version of me to strangers, maybe even friends, maybe to herself. I asked him one last question. How long have you two been talking? He didn't answer right away. I watched the typing bubble pop up, disappear, come back. Since September. It was January. I felt something inside me drop. September was when I got the new job contract, the one that had me pulling longer hours, the one she said she was so proud of. We celebrated with takeout and champagne flutes, and I remember her laughing while feeding soot from the couch, saying, "We're going to be okay now." She'd already been texting him for 2 weeks. I didn't reply to Austin. There was nothing left to say. He didn't know me. He never did. But now he'd seen just enough of her truth to back away like the others before him. One by one, they learned. But none of them had to live with the wreckage she left behind. I did. The next morning, I got 2 missed calls from her. Then a voicemail. She was crying. Of course she was. Saying she couldn't sleep. That it wasn't like that. That she needed me to come home so they could talk like adults. The problem was, adults didn't play pretend. And adults didn't use love like currency, spending it elsewhere just because they felt underpaid at home. I didn't call back. I didn't answer her texts. Instead, I did something I hadn't done since we got married. I logged into our shared bank account and quietly opened a second one. Then I made a list. Not of revenge, of boundaries. And she wasn't going to like any of them. I didn't storm out of her life. I didn't disappear in a blaze of middle-aged drama. I did something worse. I left slowly, quietly, methodically, like peeling wallpaper off the walls of a house you once loved, layer by painful layer, until you're staring at the blank wall behind it, wondering why you ever thought the pattern was beautiful. It started with small things. I unlinked my name from the utilities. I changed the password to my cloud storage. I canceled the auto-renew on the streaming services she used but never paid for. She noticed, but not immediately. That's the thing about someone who's used to you doing everything. They don't notice you vanishing until something doesn't work. She kept texting. At first, it was all guilt-flavored apologies, sentences stuffed with please and I never meant to. Then it shifted to anger. She told me I was being immature, that I was punishing her for a fantasy, that she didn't even sleep with him, as if infidelity only counts if it's on a mattress. But I never blocked her. I let every message come through. I wanted her to feel the echo when I didn't reply, to sit in the silence she once demanded when she said she needed space. She got it now, in full. A cold, perfect silence. I returned home once, not to reconcile, but to retrieve my remaining things. She was there, waiting, wearing a sweatshirt I bought her 4 Christmases ago. She looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I'd just gotten taller without her weighing me down. "You're really doing this?" she asked, arms crossed, eyes red but dry. "You're just going to throw everything away?" I walked past her into the bedroom. "You already did. I told you it was a mistake," she snapped. "I didn't go through with it. I stopped it." I zipped my suitcase and turned to face her. "You didn't stop it. He did. You didn't end anything. You were interrupted." That hit her. I saw it. The way her lip trembled, the way her arms dropped to her sides like someone had cut her strings. She sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly speechless. "I never cheated," she whispered, almost to herself. "You planned it. You scheduled it. You fantasized about it. The only thing you didn't do was sign the receipt at checkout." That was the last thing I said to her in that house. I didn't yell. I didn't slam doors. I walked out like I was walking off a sinking ship, calmly, with every step soaked in the knowledge that I'd let her drown in her own excuses. Later that night, she sent me a photo. It was Soot, curled up in his usual spot on the couch, head resting on her lap. She added just one line: "He misses you. Come home." I stared at it for 10 whole minutes. Then I sent back a photo of an empty guest room in my friend's apartment, with my suitcase next to the bed and a bowl of food already set down beside it. "He's with me." She didn't respond. A week passed. Then 2. I kept waiting for the crash. The sadness. The desperate need to go crawling back. I kept expecting to wake up in a panic, wondering if I made a mistake. If walking away from the woman I once thought I'd grow old with would ruin me. But the crash never came. What came instead was quiet. Not silence. I'd already had that. But peace. The kind of quiet that doesn't echo with what-ifs or shame. The kind of quiet that lets you breathe differently. Slower. Cleaner. I'd moved in with my college buddy Jared, the kind of guy who always kept a spare room, just in case something blew up. We stayed up late that first night, drinking weak coffee and watching bad TV. And for the first time in months, I laughed. Like, really laughed. I'd forgotten how that felt. Charisse kept texting. A slow drip. Little messages at odd hours. At first, I read them. Then I stopped. She was unraveling in real time, trying everything from guilt to nostalgia to seduction. Her last message came on a Monday morning, just 2 words. "Please talk." I didn't reply, because by then, something had shifted. Not in her, in me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even bitter. I was done. And not in that loud, dramatic, ill-show-you kind of way. Just quietly done. The kind of done that doesn't need closure. The kind that closes the door from the inside and throws away the spare key. 2 months later, I signed a lease for a new place. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Small, clean, quiet. I bought a new couch, a new toothbrush, even a new mug that said, "Do no harm, but take no nonsense." Jared rolled his eyes when he saw it, but I loved that stupid thing. And Soot, he adjusted better than I did. He stopped whining by the second week, slept through the night, took to sitting by the window in the late afternoon, watching the world go by like an old soul. I think he knew. Dogs always know. One afternoon, I saw her. At the grocery store, of all places. She didn't see me at first. She was in the produce aisle, picking up apples like she had all the time in the world. She looked smaller. Not physically, just faded. Like someone who'd been living in rewind for too long. She turned, saw me, and froze. For a second, I thought she'd come over. Say something. Try again. But she didn't. She just stared. I gave her the smallest nod. Nothing more. Then I walked away, not looking back once. And that was it. No dramatic confrontation. No speech. Just distance, the kind that finally made sense. These days, I still think about her sometimes. Not with anger. Not with regret. Just with a quiet kind of sadness for the people we were and the people we couldn't stay. But more than that, I think about the person I became without her. Someone who finally learned that being soft doesn't mean being spineless. That loving someone doesn't mean losing yourself. And that leaving isn't always a failure. Sometimes, it's the beginning of peace. And this time, I'm not giving it back.